From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. First, the headlines. U.S. Appeals Court says amnesty law does not protect officials who supported January 6th. U.S. saw sharp rise in active shooter incidents in 2021, according to FBI data. Syrian refugees in Turkey left in limbo. Imran Khan gives government deadline to announce fresh poll. New survey finds 1 in 4 Canadians doesn't trust Muslims. Palestinian painter who lost family in Israeli attacks expresses pain with art. And our top story tonight. On Tuesday, the U.S. Courts of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit ruled that post-Civil War amnesty laws do not protect members of Congress who supported the January 6th Capitol riot. A case filed against North Carolina Representative Madison Cawthorn claimed he is ineligible to run for re-election because of his comments supporting the Capitol attack. Voters argued it violated a 14th Amendment clause which disqualifies insurrectionists. Under the clause, politicians who have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. or given aid or comfort to insurrectionists are barred from running for Congress. Cawthorn argued the Amnesty Act of 1872 appealed the clause and protected him. A federal judge agreed and dismissed the challenge to Cawthorn. But Fourth Circuit Judge Toby Heitens wrote the Amnesty Act removed the eligibility bar only for those constitutionally wrongful act occurred before its enactment. Heitens said that the act does not categorically exempt all future rebels and insurrectionists. Cawthorn lost his GOP primary, but the ruling may apply to other elected officials as well. In related news, former President Donald Trump was upset that former Vice President Mike Pence was escorted to safety as MAGA supporters stormed the Capitol and called for his hanging. That's according to witnesses testifying before the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol riots. The New York Times reports a colleague of former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows testified before the committee. The witness said Meadows told colleagues that Trump was complaining the vice president was being whisked to safety. The witness also said Meadows claimed Trump had suggested Pence maybe deserved to be hung. The report emphasized it is not clear what tone Mr. Trump was said to have used. The United States saw 61 active shooter incidents last year, the highest tally in more than 20 years, according to new FBI data. The agency said it marks a sharp rise in the sheer number of attacks, casualties, and geographic distribution from 2020. In 2021, the number of active shooter cases across 30 states was 52% higher than in 2020 and about double each of the 3 previous years, the agency reported. Last year's shootings left 103 people dead and 140 wounded, the report said. The FBI defines an active shooter as someone engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a public space at random. Gang-related shootings and domestic violence incidents are not included in the count. All but one of the suspected shooters were male, ranging in age from 12 to 67. Former President Donald Trump is headlining a forum at the National Rifle Association's annual meeting in Houston on Friday. The venue is about a 4-hour drive from where a shooter on Tuesday killed 19 children and 2 teachers at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. On Wednesday, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform that he would keep his appearance. The Memorial Day weekend meeting is the year's largest for the gun lobby after cancellations due to the coronavirus pandemic. The meeting will take place over 3 days and showcase over 14 acres of the latest guns and gear, according to NRA's website. The Institute for Medieval and Post-Medieval Studies will host the first Muslim woman and scientist to have a galaxy named after her. Burjin Mutlu Pakdil will speak about the rare galaxy at the University of Texas at Dallas this weekend. Mutlu Pakdil helped discover PGC 100714 in 2016. She also will be presenting her current research on dark matter, black holes, and other peculiar ringed galaxies. The discovery of Mutlu Pakdil's dwarf galaxy raises questions about how the universe works. Bashir Ahmed, president of IMPMS, said that this particular galaxy has two rings with no visible materials attached to them. It is a rare phenomenon no one has ever seen before, he said. Mutlu Pakdil is a postdoctoral fellow with the National Science Foundation and the Kavli Institute for Cosmological Physics at the University of Chicago. Palestinian painter Zeynep Kulek, who lost 22 members of her family in Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip in May 2021, depicts her suffering through art. A large number of Palestinians were killed along with Kulek's family during the May 16th Israeli airstrike. The 22-year-old lost her mother and 3 siblings during the bombardment when she said her house was hit and began to collapse. Kulek said she saw her mother alive for the last time and then waited for 12 hours under the rubble to be rescued. The artist said she experienced indescribable pain and it took time to recover. She decided to paint to tell the world about her own and Palestinians' suffering. Extremists killed 30 men in a revenge attack after their commander died in military airstrikes in Nigeria's northeast Borno state, militia leaders said on Tuesday. Fighters from ISIS West Africa province seized the men in Modu village in the Dikwa area Saturday, militia leaders said. News of the incident emerged late due to destruction of telecom towers by extremists in the region. Most of the men were slaughtered by militants, while a few who tried to flee were shot, militia leader Babakuru Kolo told AFP. He said the men trekked from displacement camps in the town of Ran, 80 kilometers away. Another militia leader, Omar Ari, said Daesh had accused the slain men of passing information on their positions to the military. Bringing news updates from Birmingham 2022 festival after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS.
Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
16 shots! No me! No justice! No me!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward.
That lesson learned have brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe, and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
Welcome back. An immersive theater show exploring faith across the West Midlands is part of the 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games Cultural Festival. Waswasa, Whispers in Prayer, combines art, music, and movement to celebrate the city's underrepresented communities. The performance offers a window into Islamic prayer. It is designed to showcase positive representations of faith and challenge negative portrayals of Islam and Muslims, said Muhammad Ali, artistic director of Soul City Arts. Audience can see the show at the Birmingham Hippodrome from August 25th. Hundreds of bespoke prayer mats will be created ahead of the performance and displayed in the theater. They will be inscribed with prayers submitted by local people. 1 in 4 Canadians do not trust Muslims, according to a new survey by Zabiha Halal. The national survey was recently conducted by Lager as part of its Sharing Halal campaign, which aims to challenge and dismantle Islamophobia in Canada. The survey also revealed respondents believe Canada is an inclusive country. It found 81% of respondents say Canada is accepting of people of varying ethnic, cultural, and faith backgrounds. But 1 in 3 Canadians are concerned with the number of Muslim immigrants, and 27% say hijabs should be banned. Zabiha Halal's campaign has been showcasing the diversity of people and perspectives within the Canadian Muslim community. Now in its 4th year, the campaign allows Muslim Canadians a chance to address Islamophobia by sharing personal experiences. Turkish politicians on TV have been calling for Syrian refugees to return home, but for many, Damascus is still not safe. Hundreds and thousands of Syrian refugees are sheltering in Turkey's Şanlıurfa province, which shares a long border with Syria. Syria's 11-year civil war is estimated to have killed nearly 500,000 people and displaced millions more. It began with a brutal crackdown of anti-government protests in 2011. Turkey has fervently opposed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and backed rebels calling for his removal. A new wave of economic turbulence with inflation and the value of the lira dropping has put Turkey's 3.7 million Syrian refugees under enormous strain. Over 5,000 never-before-seen police photos offer significant new insight into the internment of Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities, according to a media report. The discovery comes a day after China's top diplomat said a visit from the UN human rights chief would clarify misunderstanding on China's human rights record. UN High Commissioner Michelle Bachelet held bilateral discussions Monday with Wang Yi in Guangzhou, a sprawling port city northwest of Hong Kong. The talks are part of her week-long trip to China. Wang noted the trip would help enhance understanding and cooperation and clarify misinformation. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan warned the country's government to set new elections in the next 6 days. Otherwise, Khan threatened to again march on the capital along with millions of people, as he did this week. Khan spoke at a Thursday morning rally before thousands of demonstrators in Islamabad. Pakistanis in the tens of thousands, including families and young people from across the nation, are converging on the capital. The growing crowds are having to brave the scorching heat wave afflicting Pakistan. President Arif Alwi has called for a parliament sitting Thursday, according to a statement by his office. No other details have been released. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid in Chicago. Just like you, I was moved by that Allahu Akbar lady. She stood her ground, fearful of none, for her hijab and for her education. Sisters and brothers, Indian Muslims are facing a genocide. India does not care for Muslim protesting, but it does care for the world opinion. Therefore, we must push the United Nations. The UN has a responsibility to protect. They must prevent genocide. Please sign this UN petition now. Get others to sign. It will help. Trust me, it will help. We need 1 million signatures, brothers and sisters. Please sign now.
Mr. Speaker, if I decide to wear a turban, or you decide to wear a cross, or he decides to wear a kippah or a skull cap, or she decides to wear a hijab or a burqa, does that mean that it is open season for right honourable members of this House to make derogatory and divisive remarks about our appearance? For those of us who from a young age have had to endure and face up to being called names such as Towelhead or Taliban, or coming from Bongo land, we can appreciate full well the hurt and pain felt by already vulnerable Muslim women when they are described as looking like bank robbers and letterboxes. So rather than hide behind sham and whitewash investigations, when will the Prime Minister finally apologise for his derogatory and racist remarks racist remarks, Mr. Speaker, which have led to a spike in hate crime? And given the increasing prevalence of such incidents within his party, when will the Prime Minister finally order an inquiry into Islamophobia within the Conservative Party, something which he and his Chancellor promised on national television?
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss Biden's Taiwan policy, let's go to Edward Ahmed Mitchell. Over to you, Edward.
Thank you, Hena. And now we move to a discussion of the issue of Taiwan, U.S. policy towards Taiwan, and the Chinese government's policy towards Taiwan. This has been an issue that is new to many Americans, but it shouldn't be. It's something that has been an issue for decades now, and it's something that is of increasing concern to our government and to our nation, especially in light of what we just saw happen in Ukraine. So to discuss the issue of Taiwan, to educate us about the situation there, what it means for the United States and Asia and people around the world, I'd like to welcome our guest. Our guest is Mr. Chaz Freeman. He is a former American diplomat, and he is a businessman who chairs Projects International, Inc. Mr. Freeman served as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs from 1993 to 1994. He was also the principal U.S. interpreter during President Nixon's landmark trip to China back in 1972. You can learn more about him at chazfreeman.net, and we're very honored to have him here with us today. Good afternoon, Mr. Freeman. How are you?
I am fine, Edward. Thank you very much for that kind introduction.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Freeman. So, as I mentioned when we were speaking, a lot of people in the United States may not know a lot about Taiwan and U.S. policy towards Taiwan and the complexities of that. And most of our audience here are American Muslims who really may not be familiar with the situation. So can I just start by asking you to just give us a little brief education? What is going on? What is the situation with Taiwan, the United States, and China?
Well, let me begin by giving everybody a little short version of history. Taiwan was a province of China. In 1895, Japan went to war with China and took Taiwan. It occupied it until 1945, when it was defeated in World War II. China then recovered the province of Taiwan. Meanwhile, on the mainland of China, there was a civil war in progress. The government headed by Chiang Kai-shek was defeated by the Communist Party led by Mao Zedong. General Jiang and his government fled to the newly recovered province of Taiwan and set up there. The United States backed Chiang Kai-shek for more than 2 decades. Even though he'd lost the Civil War, we asserted that he was still the legal government of China. We banned any contact anywhere with what we called the bogus regime in Beijing. And Taipei, the main city, the capital in Taiwan, occupied both the Security Council and the General Assembly, representing China in the United Nations. In 1971, Henry Kissinger made a secret visit to Beijing and was able to set the Taiwan issue to one side. Up to that point, the Chinese Communist Party had refused contact with the United States or substantive discussion on the grounds that we were involved in their civil war. 1972, President Nixon went to China and agreed to normalize relations with Beijing. Why? To give up containing China by supporting Taiwan, the losing party in the Civil War, and enlist China to contain the Soviet Union. That finally happened under Jimmy Carter in 1979. And we have had since then a very robust relationship with both sides of the Taiwan Strait. We agreed in 1979 to 3 conditions. First, no official relationship anymore with Taiwan. Second, and all U.S. forces and installations on the island were to be withdrawn, and they were. And third, we would end the Mutual Security Treaty, the defense commitment to Taiwan in accordance with the terms of the treaty, and that happened. The problem now is that each of these commitments over time has been walked back by the United States. There's a building in Taipei now, a $230 million building that flies the US flag, has Marine guards, and is in everything but name an embassy. We send members of the cabinet for official meetings in Taipei as though we had restored official relations with it. There are troops on the island training Taiwanese armed forces again. And finally, Mr. Biden the other day appeared to try to reinstate the defense commitment. So all this has caused a tremendous rise in tensions, and from the perspective of Beijing, left it with no alternative to the use of force to end the still unended Chinese Civil War. So this is the background, and it is sad to see the system we put in place 40 years ago to manage this problem and prevent it from flaring up again in actual warfare collapse, but it is pretty much gone.
Thank you for that history. That was very efficient and clear. So thank you, Mr. Freeman, for that rundown of what has brought us to this point. So right now, it sounds like you are concerned or expect that the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, might at some point attempt to forcibly retake Taiwan. Now, my understanding is that there is some law on the books in the United States that indicates we are obligated to support the Taiwanese government, not necessarily with our own troops, but to provide them with the ability to defend themselves. Can you tell us about what that law is, what that would mean if China were to invade Taiwan? What is the U.S. obligation if that were to happen, and if that were to happen anytime in the near future?
Well, in 1979, when we established an embassy in Beijing and diplomatic relations with it, we also passed a law called the Taiwan Relations Act, most of which, all of the preamble really, is designed to support an unofficial relationship with the island that basically enables us to preserve all of the substantive relationships, the trade, the business relationships, the frameworks for conducting normal interaction with the island, even though we don't recognize it as a state or a country. Taiwan Relations Act preamble provides that the United States should, the president should, provide Taiwan with the weapons it needs to ensure its own defense. It does not authorize U.S. intervention. One of the issues with President Biden's statement the other day that, yes, we would come to the defense of Taiwan is that under the Constitution, most people have forgotten apparently, under the Constitution, the war power, the ability to declare war, authorize war, is reserved to the legislative branch, to the Congress. Since the Korean War, however, the Congress has pretty much rubber-stamped presidential wars, including Vietnam and the invasion of Iraq and a lot of other things that haven't worked out terribly well for us. So from the Chinese perspective, this was a serious threat. One other element I need to mention, and that is the concept of one China. Both Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong agreed that there was only one China. And that it included Taiwan. And the only thing they disagreed about was who was the legal government of China and entitled to represent it internationally. As long as the one China framework was in place, Beijing really could afford to defer the issue. One China perhaps, but not now. All right, we'll wait, we're patient. Eventually, Taiwan will be reunited with the rest of China. And so there's no rush, there's no urgency. But we now have in our politics quite a number of advocates, including prominently Mike Pompeo, of a one China, one Taiwan, or an independent Taiwan relationship. This is a casus belli. This would thrust us into a war. It would reignite the civil war between Chinese that has been dormant for 50 years.
Now, Mr. Freeman, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on, obviously the Chinese government we don't know obviously a lot about their internal discussions and thought process except what they decide to share with the public, but it seems you've indicated that you feel the Chinese government is being put in a position where they almost, it's almost pushing them towards taking some sort of military action. What would you say to people who think, well, they were going to do it inevitably one way or another unless Taiwan voluntarily submitted to reunification, and it was just inevitable they would do this, and now maybe we're making this happen sooner than expected. What do you think of that? Accurate, inaccurate? Do you think that there was a scenario where they might have just let this drag on indefinitely, the two separate entities, and just kind of left some flexibility there? Or do you think that that our actions in the United States is really triggering something that would not have happened anyway?
Well, this gets to the point that on January 1st, 1979, when U.S.-China normalization went into effect, namely, we switched diplomatic relations to Beijing from Taipei. Artillery exchanges between the mainland and the Taiwanese-held island of Quemoy, which had been going on for 40 years, stopped. And the Chinese government in Beijing put forward a proposal for negotiation with Taiwan. And they have put forward many proposals since. So it's clear they want a peaceful settlement. They're have been prepared to negotiate an agreement with Taiwan. And Taiwan, for a long time, was involved in dialogue across the strait. Actually, the president in Taipei and the president in Beijing, Xi Jinping, met in Singapore to discuss the relationship between the two sides. But Taiwan's politics have changed, and so have ours. And these talks are stopped. They haven't been going on now for almost a decade. And this is a very dangerous situation, because if you're not talking to each other and you have really totally incompatible programs for governing China, including Taiwan, then a military conflict is more than likely.
Yeah. So we are just out of time, Mr. Freeman. So I'm going to ask you one last question, and hopefully you can answer very briefly. If you were still, in the game, still doing diplomatic work, and you had a chance to give your advice to the government, whether it's this president, another president, about what to do now, given where things are in the trajectory of where things are heading, what advice would you give, either to forestall a war or to win a war, or whatever it is? What advice would you be giving to our leaders right now?
I think the most urgent step is to restore respectful dialogue with the Chinese government in Beijing. You may remember when the Biden administration came into power, there was a meeting in Anchorage, Alaska, between Secretary of State Blinken and National Security Advisor Sullivan on our side and their counterparts on the Chinese side. And in effect, the U.S. went into that meeting and said, "You are moral reprobates. We don't like you. We think you're up to no good. We're going to hold you down if we can. We're going to push you backwards. But there are a couple of things we need your help on, like climate change and so on. Would you help us?" This was not a diplomatic approach that had any prospect of doing anything but aggravating the tensions between the two countries. We can't deal with the question of Taiwan if we have no polite dialogue. Bismarck, the great unifier of Germany, once said, "You should always be polite, even when you're delivering a declaration of war." And I'd argue for this advice to be heeded.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman, for sharing your thoughts and your experiences and your perspectives. We appreciate it. And we look forward to having you back again, God willing, hopefully not to discuss an open conflict, but hopefully to discuss some positive news. We will see, God willing.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Now we'll toss it back to you, Hena.
Thank you so much, Edward. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.